Welcome to Shaping Healthcare, a podcast by CitiusTech. I'm your host, Laurel Rockel. In today's data-driven world, healthcare faces a persistent challenge, enabling innovation without compromising patient privacy. Today's episode will explore how synthetic data is helping healthcare organizations tackle this challenge head-on, not just to stay compliant, but to truly innovate. Joining me today are two leaders who have been deeply involved in shaping the application of synthetic data in healthcare, Gaurav Shrimal from CitiusTech and Garth Rose from GenRocket. Welcome to the podcast, Gaurav and Garth.
Great to
Thank
be
you,
here.
Laurel. Thank you for having us here.
Well, it's great having you both, and I think the best place to start might be with kicking off with a quick round of introductions. So, Gaurav and Garth, would you be able to please introduce yourselves and your organization's role within healthcare innovation?
Sure, Laurel. I'll go first. And I'm so glad to be on this podcast with Garth today. So I'm Gaurav Shrimal. I'm an AVP and head of QA and testing practice at CitiusTech. CitiusTech basically provides healthcare technology services and solutions to various customers in payer, provider, medtech, and life sciences market globally. So we are basically focusing on driving digital health transformation while we are leveraging advanced analytics, AI, interoperability standards, and various data platforms to overall improve the care quality, patient engagement, and operational efficiency for our customers.
Excellent, thank you.
Awesome.
Garth?
I'll go next. I'm Garth Rose. I'm co-founder and CEO of GenRocket. We're based in California. Heisel Taylor and I co-founded the company back in 2012. And at that time, it wasn't really called synthetic data. It was really called data generation. And over time, the industry started to call it synthetic. But it was the ability to design and generate any volume, variety, and any format of data. And the goal was really to be able to, it's a very versatile platform. So one of the very big verticals for us is the healthcare industry. And so we've been excited to partner with Gaurav in the healthcare industry. But that's a little introduction to our company and the platform.
Excellent. Thank you both very much for that explanation. And I think what you were saying with synthetic data being called generated data previously,
Yes.
I think before we deep dive into synthetic data and how that's used in healthcare, Garth, and starting with you, if you don't mind, elaborating on what exactly is synthetic data and why is that becoming so critical in healthcare today?
So starting with data privacy. So you could imagine in healthcare, there's a tremendous amount of sensitive data, what you might call PHI, personal health information, and that cannot be exposed by HIPAA regulations. So the beauty of synthetic data is that it is a way of providing very accurate data, but data that has no security implications. So it meets HIPAA requirements. And so the beauty of being able to design the data is it can be very accurate to specific healthcare requirements and use cases, yet there's no exposure to data. So at my house, I happen to have a synthetic grass lawn in California, not a lot of water. People will come over and say, your grass looks beautiful. And I'll say, it's actually synthetic. And I'm like, really? So it looks exactly real, even though it happens to be a synthetic. And that's really the same thing in terms of the data that we can, if I showed you or generated data for you now, you wouldn't, unless I wanted to, you would not know that it was synthetic data.
And Gaurav, anything to add to that in terms of how that's used within healthcare?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Laurel. So, in fact, Garth gave a very good analogy with the synthetic grass. Now, in healthcare, I would look at data, synthetic data from two perspectives. One is structured data, and another one is unstructured data. And in both the cases, in fact, both the types of data are being used across different types of application as we build and test them, right? So we can talk about training the AI models when we are building them, or for clinical research, we might need synthetic data, or even for interoperability testing, we might need synthetic data. But the key point is something that Garth highlighted is aligning and making sure we are not violating any data privacy, the patient data privacy. And that's where the privacy regulations come into picture, be it HIPAA, be it GDPR. So that's where it becomes very important. any synthetic data that is being generated. It has the statistical properties of the real world data, but at the same time, it should not violate any of these privacy regulations.
And might I
Excellent.
add one more
Yeah,
thing, Laura?
sure.
So Gaurav talked about the statistical properties, and sometimes that is correct, and sometimes the beauty of the way that GenRocket designs and generates data, in fact, for proper testing, you need what you might call negative data or boundary condition data. So if you look at a source of data the industry's used for a long time, it's so-called production data. And production data, depending on the use cases, has quite a bit of limitations, maybe 50% data coverage, maybe 70% data coverage. So the problem is for those data gaps, when you need more volume, when you need more negative data and so forth, where do you come up with that? And the industry has traditionally created that manually or in spreadsheets or scripting, which doesn't scale. So it's very much what Gaurav said is that sometimes for machine learning training use cases, you want to have the exact statistical properties. But in many use cases, you don't. You actually want to be able to define the data to be bad. My co-founder, Heisel Taylor, always say is, sometimes the data, this data value is good value. Sometimes it's bad. It just depends upon the use case. So I just wanted to add what Gaurav said.
True.
Yeah, that's a great addition, and that it helps to differentiate the different things that we're talking about in this topic today. And we've touched on the anonymized data, or like taking those personal identifying markers off of it to keep data privacy for patients, or de-identified data. And then you were also talking about this negative data as well too. Can you help me understand how synthetic data is different from those approaches of like
Sure.
anonymized or de-identified, and further clarify that for us, please?
Right. So when the technology industry started needing what we would call test data, the natural place to go would be to go to a production database and use that data, but it's got the sensitive data values in it. It's going to have in the United States, someone's social security number or other sensitive data values. So what the industry did was came up with an algorithm to anonymize. The term tends to be called masking, but it's essentially a method of obfuscation. And so a simple example of masking might be, if you see on the screen my name, Garth Rose, and Gaurav Shrimal, masking might be combining Garth with Shrimal. So the new name is Garth Shrimal, and then it's going to be Gaurav Rose. So
Mhm.
the names, and there's a real social security number in there, but it's flipped around there. Now, the plus of that is it does obfuscate, and the data is pretty close to being real. But the problem is it can be reverse engineered. Anytime you have an algorithm to create a sensitive data value, if you know what the algorithm is, hackers, then they can reverse that process. That's part one. Part two is that if I'm going to scan and profile data to do the masking process, I have to expose the data first. So I go from a secure production environment, I put it into a tool to scan and profile. And during that process, that data is exposed. And so these both are risky. And you aren't going to be surprised to hear that the way that GenRocket does it does not have any of those data security exposures. We don't have to look at the data. And because of synthetic data generation, the way we do it, we're not doing that process. So obfuscation has been used 20 plus years in the industry. It does work, but there are data, I would call it risk reduction. And I would say at least the way that GenRocket does it is risk elimination. Of course, the industry prefers risk elimination.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Well, thank you. And Gaurav, when we're looking at healthcare in regards to that, beyond the compliance and the privacy and security, as we just mentioned here, what other roles does the synthetic data play within the healthcare scene?
Yeah, great question, Laurel. So, beyond privacy, synthetic data can actually accelerate the innovation, and we create a lot of applications, right? And these applications can be very simple portals, which are used by your patients or which are used by your payers, or it can be very complicated AI/ML based applications also. So, like Garth was also mentioning, there are AI/ML models which needs to be trained, and there's a lot of diverse data that is needed to train these predictive models without risking the PHI exposure. So that's where synthetic data becomes very critical. Now, generally the applications that we build, we need something which is close to production, but we cannot get the production data itself. And that's where earlier anonymization, masking, etc., used to come in, but then it still has certain risk associated with it. And that's where synthetic data comes into picture, because you can use that data to test the applications, not just functionally, but also from a non-functional perspective. So if I want to do a big performance stress load testing on the application that we're working on, I need not get a whole production data. I can generate enough number of synthetic data sets and use it for my testing as well. Now, there are certain applications where you might need to augment the data that exists today, because there is scarcity of data. There is underrepresented population that is there in the data, or there is a specific disease research, a rare disease research that you want to do, and there's not enough data available for you, right? So that's where, again, synthetic data can come into play. So these are just some of the use cases which apply in healthcare industry. But ultimately, what you're looking at is how can I expedite and make my digital health solutions uh, reach the market faster in a safer manner, and that's where synthetic data becomes very, very important as we build these applications.
Oral, could I give an example to what Gaurav talked about?
Yes, absolutely.
So, if you think about clinical trials, where you have, say, a study of patients who have diabetes, and maybe a particular drug is trying to be used to help those patients, that's all sensitive data, right? Because you've got a population, say, 100,000 people going through the clinical trial. And you heard what Gaurav was saying. It'd be lovely to have that data to train on, but the problem is it's all sensitive data. So, one example is that GenRocket has the ability to send a prompt to all the clinical trial data, of course, is public. So we can send a prompt via ChatGPT, and we can pull out the metadata associated with the clinical trial. Then we can ingest that metadata, design, and then we can produce that synthetic population of 100,000 patients with all the exact statistical results, but none of that is sensitive data. That's just a nice example of what he talked about.
That's an excellent example, and great seeing how well that can be used. That you're able to train models with the real information, and so that way you're ultimately getting better and better results with that training, but at the same time keeping people safe and keeping their information safe. So thank you for that example to add into it. uh, Gaurav, I want to follow up with you with regards to data regulation and how those regulations really play a big role in how healthcare organizations are managing patient information. How do these regulatory considerations influence the way synthetic data solutions are designed and adopted?
Well, actually, regulatory frameworks like your HIPAA, GDPR, and any of the state laws, they lay the foundation of synthetic data adoption, right? Because basically they're saying no PHI information, no PI information should be there. And that's where synthetic data does exactly the same. So basically, the solutions that you're building to generate the synthetic data sets, while they're statistically representing whatever production like data you would have, but they cannot have any patient identifiable information. So it means you have to have a rigorous validation, you have to have very good governance and transparency in the generation process. Like God just gave an example. They don't use the real data itself. They just need the metadata information to generate the synthetic data. So all in all, if you ask me, compliance is not just a checkbox in this particular case. It is actually helping you build that trust that while we are doing this innovation, but organizations and patients can have that trust that we are not compromising the privacy, and we are aligning to the regulatory frameworks as we generate the synthetic data.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it's really working hand in hand for both those things, the regulations and how you're building these frameworks. Garth, are there any challenges that healthcare organizations face then when adopting synthetic data solutions? And if so, how can they navigate and overcome them?
Great question. Yes. So Just think broadly in terms of the technology industry and adopting any new technology. What we all are aware of is that AI has great potential, but yet adoption rates are low, failure rates are relatively high. Why? There's not enough use cases, not enough examples, not enough training. I don't think any of us on this podcast doubt that AI is the future, but there's a journey to getting there. It's very similar with synthetic data. So, as I shared, we started the company in 2012, and it was kind of amusing looking back, not at the time. You'd go to a company and you'd say, we can design and generate the data for you. I'm like, how are you masking it? No. We do it differently. And so there's a behavioral change process necessary. In fact, I'm going to sort of throw it back to Gaurav. That's why we partner with CitiusTech, because they're experts in healthcare. We're experts in GenRocket and designing synthetic data. And if you look at the end customer, they want the tool, they want the platform, but they also want the expertise of how to use the tool and how to apply it. And that's why we partner with Citius, because we just don't have their level of expertise in healthcare and shouldn't. We have to be experts in our platform. So going to market, we said, we're going to focus on building the best available platform, and we're going to find in the ecosystem who the key players are. We found Gaurav, and we have this nice long-term partnership. And so the partners can help bring the expertise and the training of how to adopt. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. No, and that sounds like such a great partnership, and the fact that you both have been working together on advancing synthetic data in healthcare and have this collaboration. I want to dig into that a little bit more then. And Garth, I'll start with you. Can you share what this collaboration has looked like? Maybe some real world examples of how the synthetic data that you have been working on and building, like some of the examples of how that's getting used, or even just what partnerships like this can mean for driving meaningful change.
Sure. So if you think of Gaurav's talked about a number of the different use cases. So it could be for quality engineering for software testing. It could be for machine learning training data. In healthcare, there's a range, and he talked previously also about unstructured data. So there's a wide range of use cases. And so, going to market, we said, okay, and we generally sell to the large enterprise. So large healthcare organizations are typically our customer. So what does that large healthcare organization want? Well, they want tools, but they also want testers, data scientists, and they also want, sort of training and all the wrapper around that. And so we realized early on that we were part of the solution, but not the complete part of the solution. So if you think from the perspective of the end customer, you said, okay, as CEO, co-founder of the company, I said, I can't deliver everything. So I'm going to find in the ecosystem partners who can then deliver those kinds of services. And so that's where we came across Citius. They have a long history in healthcare and technology. And I think they were a bit intrigued with our synthetic data, Gaurav. I think you sort of impressed with our capabilities. And so that formed, maybe you can pick it up from there, Gaurav, and how you found us, because I don't remember quite how we found each other.
Yeah, so honestly, actually, I knew about GenRocket even before joining CitiusTech because I had worked with them in my previous organizations. And there we had used it across multiple domains and not just for healthcare and life sciences. But I think broadly, Garth did cover. So we bring in that domain expertise. We have that data and engineering and AI capability that we bring to the table, whereas GenRocket brings in an end-to-end test data management platform. So it's not just about the synthetic data being generated, but GenRocket's capability in managing the end-to-end test data is what makes it a little differentiated in the market. And as we are building applications, and these applications can be a payer analytics and risk adjustment applications, it can be provider quality and population health applications, or like clinical trials or AI diagnostics and imaging applications. In all of these applications, as we build and test them, we need a good data set. And that's where solutions like GenRocket come in very, very handy, because together we can go to the customer and say, as we're building these applications, we are also testing them with the right data set. And you can rely on the quality of the application without any doubt that they will have any issues.
And I thought Laurel of sharing an example from healthcare that I
Yes,
brought
please.
because I thought it'd be useful to hear. So here's the story. It was a major U.S. Healthcare insurance company, and Gaurav talked about digital transformation. They were going from an old claims processing system to a new claims processing system. That system is live, processing tens of thousands of claims daily. So imagine your plane is in the air and you're flying it and you're building a new plane and you got to get the passengers from one plane to the other while it's in the air. That's kind of the analogy. So when this organization was looking for a platform that could help them, they needed a platform that could, first of all, meet the X12 EDI standard, because that's what healthcare claims are. They're an EDI, so-called EDI 837. So they needed to be able to have a wide variety of 837 claims, good claims, bad claims, volume of claims, primary payer, secondary payer. There's an enormous volume of permutations and combinations of data. And it had to meet the HIPAA requirements. So they selected GenRocket, brought us in, and I'm just looking at my notes. What they fed back to us is that, and we've been in this client now 4 years, and they essentially said that they had to have data for 3 different test environments. They wanted to be able to do parallel testing. They had to have the exact same data go into the old system and the new system at the same time to make sure that the results were exactly the same. 100% regression testing, which means they had to, anytime new code was put in, they had to be able to fully test it and make sure no bugs were introduced. They want to be able to test early, test things that hadn't even been shipped to production, do full performance testing, be able to test at performance and load at every level. And then lastly, reportability, traceability. They'd want to be able to go back and say, what data do we use in this test case on what day, to be able to prove to the auditors that they were properly, because there's claims processing that is audited regularly, and there's big penalties if you make incorrect claims. So they wanted to be able to prove that they were properly testing and they had valid claims. So just a nice example of how our platform was brought to bear to solve significant challenges for this large healthcare insurance company.
Oh my goodness. Wow. A lot of like that's such a great example, or an analogy, I should say. It's a great example, but the analogy of the airplane and trying to, transfer all these moving parts at the same time, and how precarious that all is. And sounds like it was a success, and what a great example to give, and partnership between GenRocket and CitiusTech, and how the organizations have been working together to further these solutions, and bring these great solutions to various organizations. So Garth, I guess the question's, what's next? What's next for synthetic data in healthcare, and are there any sort of exciting developments or trends that we should be watching for?
Super excited to share that we just last month announced our unstructured data accelerator. So Gaurav mentioned this earlier. So synthetic data could be structured data, what you might call tabular data. But if you think of healthcare, there's doctor's notes, there's MRI results, and so forth. There's an enormous amount of unstructured data or semi-structured data. And we have been in development for a long time and released the ability to design forms and documents at scale. And remember, I said earlier, good ones and bad ones, coffee stains, 3-hole punch, ripped on the edge, faxed copies of faxed copies, and so forth. So this is necessary to be able to have intelligent document processing. That's a big new market opportunity for us. And the same accelerator, this piece is still in development, but just around the corner, will then be able to generate a wide range of images. So you can have your passport, your ID cards, and again, volume and variety and good and bad and so forth. And we can even take a patient and age them so they can be a teenager, and then we can say they're now 30 and they're now 70. So we can do that process, and also voice. So if you think about inbound voice recognition, IVR systems, so we'll be able to synthetically generate that kind of voice in the same structured, the volume and the variety of data. So we announced that solution last month, and we're very excited because we think it's an incredible fit for the healthcare industry as well.
Wow.
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
may add to that, Laurel. So, in fact, unstructured data was something that I had been talking to Garth and his team for quite some time. Do you do that? Do you have a solution for that? Because a lot of customers do ask for us for unstructured data, and especially the last bit of it, the voice related data. It's going to be very useful, and especially because we have a lot of AI based applications that are coming in where you have these chatbots. You want to record a note, or you'd want to do something. That's where I think this kind of a data is going to be very, very interesting. Happy to hear about it, Garth. I think we'll wait for when it comes and see how we can use it in our applications as
It's just around the corner.
well.
Very exciting stuff. Yeah, looking forward to the future. And yes, just of how rapidly technology in general is changing, but especially as these AI solutions and how healthcare tech is rapidly evolving to help better care for people and support the practitioners doing their jobs. So those are excellent examples. Thank you. Uh, to wrap things up here, then I would say this has been such an insightful conversation. It's been such a pleasure sitting down with both of you and chatting with you. But before we wrap up, any advice or first steps for healthcare leaders who are curious about using synthetic data but are just not sure where to begin? So, Gaurav, can I start with you?
Sure. So I think most important is identifying a use case, because you can't talk about synthetic data in a random scenario. You need to have a use case in front of you. You need to understand what kind of data set you're looking at as these use cases are identified, and then understand what kind of data mapping is needed, whether it's structured, semi-structured, unstructured data that you're looking at, and also where exactly is the data access actually slowing down your innovation. Is it in the application development life cycle? Is it in the research that you're doing? Is it in the AI ML model training work that you're doing, right? So once you've identified all of that, that's where bring in the right partners like us, like GenRocket, to bring in that domain expertise, to bring in the platform which will help solve you the problem. So overall, don't just look at synthetic data as a privacy solution, but it can actually be an enabler for the overall digital transformation programs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes, thank you.
I'm happy to add too, very similar, where we have sort of a philosophy at GenRocket of crawl, walk, run. So we don't like to present GenRocket as a magic wand. You show up and you wave the wand and everything is solved. So it's very much just what Gaurav said. Identify a pain point. That inevitably in an IT organization, there are going to be areas of pain that can be well solved by synthetic data. And you would not just say, we're going to throw out everything we're doing today and switch. It just doesn't make logical sense. So identify the areas of pain, and that's going to be the crawl phase. And then get the use cases, just like Gaurav said. Then in the walk phase, you start to say, I see how to apply this, how to do that. And of course, with a partner who has expertise, the crawl phase and walk phase can generally be compressed and accelerated. And then you're finally moving into the run phase. I mean, we believe, and the industry analysts say the same, vast majority of data in the future is going to be synthetically generated. It just makes sense. It's secure, higher quality, all the advantages. But because it's not familiar to enterprises today, they should take that crawl, walk, run approach.
True.
Yeah. Crawl, walk, run, I think is great advice. That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you both so much again for being here with me and bringing your expertise to our conversation today. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
The Shaping Healthcare podcast is brought to you by CitiusTech, a leader in healthcare consulting and IT services. To find out more about CitiusTech, visit CitiusTech.com. To listen to more interesting insights on healthcare technology and innovations, search and subscribe to the Shaping Healthcare podcast. Thank you for listening. If you want to share any feedback or would like to be featured in our podcast, do write to us at citiusvision@citiustech.com.